Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this alternating herringbone macrame bracelet. And even though the final result looks pretty intricate, it's actually super quick and easy and therefore perfect for beginners. And speaking of beginners, I actually sell a macrame starter kit in my shop. That's a perfect way to get started on your macrame journey. I'm going to leave a link straight to it in the description box down below. Otherwise, if you want to learn how you can make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we need, and of course, first of all, we need our cord. So I'm using a C-lon cord here, but you can really use whatever kind of cord you want to, whether that's satin cord or even leather cord. Different materials will just give you different results. As for the beads, we need 4mm rounds, and the ones I'm specifically using here are 4mm Stardust spacer beads in black. But again, you can of course use whatever you want to, just make sure the holes are large enough to take your cord through. And for the clasp, I'm going to be using this Shank button here. Again, you can use whatever size and design you want to. Just make sure that the loop on the back is large enough to take 2 lengths of your cord through. Now, to finish off your cords, you have 2 options. You can either use glue or a lighter. It will depend on the type of cord you're using and also your personal preference. And lastly, I will be working on this project macrame board along with some T-pins, and of course we also can't forget about a pair of scissors. So you'll be able to find the material list and useful links in the description box down below. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut some lengths of our cord, and first of all here I have a length of about 75 centimeters, and next we need another length of a cord of about 1 meter and 75 centimeters. Then we're going to start out making the loop part of the clasp. So I take my long length of cord and I put the 2 ends together so we can find the midpoint, bring it all the way through. And then when we have the midpoint here, we need to attach this to our board. So we're going to start working in this midpoint. Once we then have it attached to the board here, I'm then going to grab the other length of cord, which is the shorter one. And I'm then again going to put the 2 ends together because here we also need to find the midpoint. Again, bring it down. And I have the midpoint here where the loop is. Then we need to start making some knots to be able to make the loop part of the clasp. So to do that, I'm going to put this loop here that I'm holding on to, which is the midpoint, down underneath the cord that's on the board, and then I'm going to put my fingers through the loop and grab onto the 2 ends of the same cord there and pull them all the way through. And then we have this little kind of pretzel shape, as you can see, and then we just want to pull that tight and make sure that this knot that we just made, which is a lax head knot, sits in the middle of the other cord. And then from here we need to start making a row of knots. So I'm just going to start with one side at a time. So we have the 2 cords here coming out from the knot and then naturally coming out to their own sides. So just start with whichever one you feel comfortable with. I'm going to start with the right one here, and I'm then going to take that cord and bring it over the top of the holding cord here that we've already made a knot on, and bring it underneath again, and then make sure when I pull it through, I'm pulling it through the loop of itself so it comes through like this, and then pull that tight, and then that goes and tightens all the way next to the first knot that we made. And then I take the same cord and now bring it underneath from the bottom here and up behind, and now come up over and pull it through the loop from the opposite direction. So again, it's going around the cord in the same way but just in the opposite direction, and again pull that tight so that sits right next to the previous one. And now what we've made is basically another lax head knot next to the first one, but this is a vertical one because we're just using the 1 cord to do that. And you just want to do a few of these. Now how many you need to do will depend on the button that you're using, because obviously that will determine how large you need to make the loop. So I'm going to make 1/2 of the length I need with this cord, and then I'm going to swap over and use the other cord to make the other half of the length I need, just so they're somewhat even for the rest of the piece. So I have my row of knots now, and obviously we need to make sure that we have the right amount so it'll fit with our button. So at any point you can always take it off and make a loop out of it by just putting the 2 ends of the row of knots here together, and then just check with your button that it'll fit through nicely, and also obviously not be too big, and this one will fit nicely. So what we need to do now is fasten this together. So just make sure we have that loop shape here, and then I just want to attach it to my board using the T-pins. So make sure the 2 ends are nice and close together and just put the pins through. Now I like to put them through kind of in between the knots just to make sure to damage the cords as least possible, something like that. And then we need to just fasten these together using a square knot. So the 2 outer cords here are the 2 short ones still, and the 2 in the middle are the 2 long ones. So for now, the 2 in the middle here are the 2 holding cords. I'm going to make a square knot around those using the short lengths on the sides. So just do one side, doesn't matter what side you start with, bring that over the 2 holding cords. The other one comes over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop here on the other side. Now if you're not too familiar with macrame knots, I do have a beginner tutorial that would be perfect. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description box down below. Then we take the cord from the other side, bring it over, and the other one over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop on the other side, and then tighten that. And that is a full square knot. And we've now fastened the 2 ends of the cord here together, so it's a full complete loop. So from here, we're now going to start on the main part of the bracelet. So again, doesn't matter what side you start with. I'm just going to take the left side first of all, the very outer cord here, and the left one of the two middle ones. I'm going to bring them together, and then I'm going to take the other middle one. So again, that's the long one, and I'm going to bring that over the top of the two left cords there, as if they were one, and then back underneath and pull it through. So as I pull it all the way through, you can see we have kind of a reverse 6 looping around those two cords on the side, and I'm just going to pull that tight up to the square knot there. And then I just want to do the same on the other side. So again, I'm grabbing the very outer cord, which is a short one, and bringing that in with the long cord that we just used to make a knot with. Then I'm going to separate out the cords on the left side here. I'm going to make sure to grab the long one, which should be the one in the middle there of the two, and then I'm going to take that and then do the same thing but on this side. So over the top of the two cords, back underneath and through the loop of itself, and you can see we get that 6 on this side. Is a regular 6 looping around the two holding cords, and then tighten that all the way up. And then I'm going to keep doing that, but also we need to start adding in our beads. So I'm just going to get a few of those ready so I can just grab them as I go when I need them, and we're going to keep swapping from side to side. So I just did my knot on the right side, and now I want to go back to the left. That means before we make a knot, we just need to add a bead in. So that means before we make a knot or anything, we just need to add a bead in, and I'm going to add my bead onto the very outer cord every time, which means the short ones. So grab onto that left one in this case, add the bead, let that drop all the way down to where it won't go any further, and then combine the two cords like we did before. So we have the short one is the outer one, and the inner one of the two is the long one. Now we grab the long one from the other side, which should be the inner one, and then we just want to make the same knot. So bring it over the top of the two holding cords here, back underneath and through the loop of itself, just like that. So we get that reverse 6, and then make sure that bead stays in between, so when we tighten this, it traps that bead in place. And then move to the other side. Again, add a bead before we make a knot. So grab the very outer cord, the short one, add the bead, let it drop all the way down, and then combine that short cord with the long one on this side here, and then grab the long cord from the other side, which would be the inner one, and then make a knot here. So go over the top of the holding cords, back underneath and through the loop of itself, so we get that normal 6 looping around the holding cords, and then just tighten that. Make sure we pull it nice and tight so we really trap those beads in place. And that is basically all there is to it. Go back to the other side, keep swapping from side to side like I said. Add your bead first of all, let it drop down, combine the two cords again, and then grab the long cord from the other side, make your knot, and then tighten that in place, and then swap to the other side and do the same again. Add your bead, let it drop down, combine your cords, grab the long one from the other side to make the knot with, over the top, back underneath, and then we get that 6, and then pull that tight, and then we can start to see the pattern that we get. So that's just how you want to keep going until you have the length that you need. Once we then reach the other end here, we need to also finish off this end with a square knot. So the two cords in the middle that we've been making knots with, just have them come straight down, and then I'm going to take the two cords on the sides and make a square knot around the two holding cords in the middle, just like we did in the beginning. Just pull that nice and tight, and then do the other half of the square knot as well, and again pull that nice and tight. And now of course we just need to add in a button as well. So I'm grabbing the two cords in the middle, getting to the very ends there, and then I'm going to put both of the cords through the loop on the button in the same direction, and just then push the button here all the way up to sit right underneath that square knot. And then to cage that in place, we need to make another square knot with the same working cords here that we just did before, and that is going to then cage in that button. So that's one half, and then just do the other half of the knot, and then it tightens right underneath the button there. And I like to make 2 knots if there's enough space for it under the button, just to make it a bit more secure. And there we go. Now we can remove this from our board, and all we got to do then is finish off the ends of the cord. So just going to flip it around here so we can see where the cords are coming out from. Now if you want to use glue, or if you're using a cord where you have to use glue, you just want to add glue around that last knot that we made, and then once it's dried you go in and cut off the excess. But what I'm going to be doing is using a lighter to singe down the ends. So to do that, I'm going to go in and cut off the excess first, but make sure I leave just a short little end of the cord from where it's coming out from, about 1 millimeter or so, and then I grab my lighter and basically go in and singe off that little end of cord, and you can just use the lighter to push that in. And now obviously be careful because this is a naked flame and it does get hot, but what this does is melts the cord, and you can do this if it's a synthetic cord only, and it just seals it in place and gets rid of the end. And of course you just want to do the same thing with the rest of them as well. And then we can use a button here for the button and loop closure, and we have our finished bracelet ready to wear. Now I just want to show you how to start out if you're using leather cord, because it's a little bit different. You still have your short and long cord, and then I'm going to find the middle on both of them. So just put the ends together, find the midpoint, keep hold of that, and then again I'm just going to repeat that with the other one. Find the midpoint by putting the two ends together, and then keep hold of that loop here. Now because this is the leather cord, I'm not going to be making a macrame loop, so doing the vertical lark's head knots. I'm literally just going to have the cord itself as the loop. So we need to make sure that the long cords here are in the middle when we get to the main part of the bracelet, which means I'm going to make sure I have this loop here. Then I'm going to take the midpoint of the short length and put that behind the two cords, and then I want to make a square knot straight away. So bring one over the two holding cords, the other one over that, underneath everything in the middle, and then we can start to pull it tighter here all the way up and pull that nice and tight. And then we have the first half of a square knot, and I'm just going to make the other half straight away, and again pull that nice and tight, so we have our complete square knot. Now at this point here you can see this loop is pretty big, so this is where I can just adjust that before we continue. So bring in the button. As you can see, that is way too big, so all you want to do is pull the cords here in the middle through that square knot to the point where it's going to be the perfect size. That's why I prefer to make sure the loop is too large, way too large at the beginning there, because we can always tighten it. So this is pretty perfect, the size. So I now know that I can continue, and that's basically how I make the loop when it's using leather cord, because that is strong enough in itself to be a loop and hold for the clasp. And then from here we just want to get straight into making the main part of the bracelet. And again, I like to just start out making a knot on each side before I start adding beads in. So bring the two outer cords here together, and then I take the other long one in the middle and just make a half hitch, just like all the other knots we made previously, and then pull that tight to sit all the way up underneath that square knot. Now bring the two cords on the other side together, and then take the long cord from the side where we just made the knot, and then make your half hitch on this side, and then pull that tight like that. And then we want to start adding in our beads, and then we go back to the other side and add our first bead. So we'll go to the end, add the bead to the short cord here on the outer edge, make sure it drops all the way down there to where it won't go any further. Then bring the two outer cords together, use the long length on the other side, make your half hitch, and then tighten that so it traps that bead in place. Move back to the opposite side, add your bead to that length, again the short length, make sure it goes all the way down there. Bring the two cords together on that side, and then take the long one from the other side and make your half hitch, and then tighten that. And you just keep going to the other end, and otherwise finish off with your button in the same way. And here obviously you'll have to use glue to finish off the ends of the cords. So just continue, and then using the leather cord here, you're really going to be able to see the pattern in the macrame that we're making. So that's how you make this alternating herringbone macrame bracelet that's super quick and easy, and you can really achieve many different looks depending on the materials that you choose. Now don't forget, if you love macrame, I do have the macrame starter kit in my shop, and also I have loads more tutorials on my channel, so you can check those out. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.